Is Jake Doolittle MD? Is that it? Let's check. Oh, Jake Doolittle is not a doctor. Okay, just checking. So here's the next argument, and Sunday covered this last night, and it was spectacularly offensive, and we're going to talk about it in some detail. Um,
Before this video starts, I would like to preface it with a few things.
I want to note some things here. This is being presented as a fundraiser. Foreign Man has effectively given his detractors layups since he started his channel, and the only one taking him to task is Keffels, who completely botched it to hell. Yeah, well, Keffels has been turning out drama content at a prodigious rate, so it's not like yes, Palm Dead, this dude. It's not like it's unusual. This is Jake Doolittle, who apparently is a spokesperson for chronic illness, and runs a charity called Never Stop. I am a sufferer of chronic illness. I am a sufferer of chronic kidney disease. I went to dialysis just today, in fact. I have an understanding of the difficulties inherent in chronic illness and the difficulties inherent in getting yourself to be taken seriously. And I find what happened here to be gross. Like, what this kid is doing is far and away one of the more disgusting things I've seen. He is taking a person's, one of the most difficult times they're going to be, where they're sitting there uncertain and like talking about it and trying to hold them to task for this is unbelievable. But like the level of which this kid shows his ass is remarkable. So this is a relatively new charity, and we don't have a lot of information about it. I just want to show you that we just don't simply have a lot of information about it. We don't know who's being paid to manage this, how it's being accountable. It doesn't have any real information. So let's keep that in mind as we're going on. That the absent 280K subscribers, speaking of which, subscribe to the channel. It makes me happy. Absent that, we don't know much about this guy or what his deal is.
Leading up to this video, I was a huge fan of the H3 podcast. When I was at my sickest, the podcast was always something that I could watch to make me feel less alone. I even remember saving up money from my first job ever to buy multiple Teddy Fresh items. More recently, I was on the podcast speaking to Ethan about an unrelated subject. I left VidCon to attend their most recent live show, and I am also friendly with a few of their crew members. But I saw a few very concerning things when it comes to Ethan Klein's lupus journey. And as someone who's been sick his entire entire life, I felt like I needed to make this video. Not only have I dealt with chronic illness, but I run a nonprofit where I support people financially who are sick and struggling. As a viewer of the podcast, if I were to stand back and watch Ethan lie, saying certain things about his health that are just straight up misinformation, then I would be doing a disservice to an entire community. My goal in making this video is not to do anything but address what I've seen from Ethan and his behavior. Ethan Klein claimed to have lupus, made money off of it, and then admitted that he made everything up and self-diagnosed himself. As I'm recording this, yesterday I posted a teaser to this.
Okay, that's a big claim right there. You're saying he made everything up, that you have to now demonstrate that he made everything up, and that he self-diagnosed himself. There's a lot of things that go into lupus, and I don't understand it nearly as well as certain other people. But like, this is not a small claim.
Video, and I've received more backlash than I've gotten in a very long time. So much so that somebody from the H3 crew direct messaged me and called me insane for thinking this. I also want it to be...
No, I don't think you're insane. I think you're a shill. I think you're trying to take someone's suffering and use it to build your own to build your own backbone of your new charity. That's what I think you are. But let's take a look.
Known that I understand the other side of things. I get that dealing with health problems can be a very scary time in someone's life, but when the health problems that Ethan Klein is talking about are completely self-diagnosed with zero symptoms, you have to ask yourself, why is he doing this? On June 16th, 2023, Ethan live streamed an episode of his show, The H3 Podcast. The episode was going fine until Ethan said something unexpected.
This morning, I thought I had cancer for sure. I'm not going to lie.
This morning? What happened this morning?
I got some, because I did a bunch, I had weird blood values when I just did the whole blood work to test my cholesterol and stuff. It was fine. My white blood cells and platelet counts were high. So my doctor was like, it's probably nothing, but I can send you to a hematologist. Well, I wasn't super worried, but then I went to the hematologist and we did a whole bunch of tests. That was, earlier this week, and they started coming in. And so like, here's one, tryptase. A lot of this stuff has to do with like leukemia.
Saying that an...
Yes, that's how you diagnose things. You start doing tests to rule things out, first off.
Elevated tryptase relates to leukemia is like saying that sneezing relates to sinus cancer. Ethan states that he went to check on his cholesterol levels and then seemingly read his own lab results and self-diagnosed himself based off of Google searches. He goes on to talk about a more...
Where does he say that? Anywhere, where does he say that? He says that not at all. He says, I had this thing, my doctor sent me for additional blood tests. He doesn't say he's diagnosing himself off of Google searches. You have to put this argument together coherently, one point after another, and you have not done this.
Recent test result that came in. This test is the one that Ethan runs with throughout this entire journey.
My Anna titer. This is also like leukemia and lupus and shit.
First, Anna titer makes no sense. The part that Ethan calls Anna stands for anti-nuclear antibodies. It's an acronym that Ethan pronounces Anna instead of ANA like most every medical professional does. This also adds to my claim of Ethan's search.
No, it doesn't. Ethan is not a medical professional, you tool. Okay, I've been a frequent recipient of blood tests. You know, it comes up on my phone every single time they do one, usually before the nurse in the hospital gets it. And the doctor. I can see the blood test results first. Here's the thing. If you are a long-time sufferer of chronic illness, I would expect you to pick up the lingo. If you're not, then I wouldn't. Especially if you're new. And like, when you're doing this, what they're doing is a whole bunch of tests designed to rule out various factors. 1, 2, 3, whatever, we can do this test and these indicates counterindicates, blah, 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 blah. You're getting a lot of information thrown at you at one time. So if you don't necessarily know, the other guy is taking care of children tonight. If you don't necessarily know what's happening yet, you're not gonna be able to necessarily talk about this as coherently as someone who's been going through it for 5, 6, 7 years, or someone in my case who's been going through it for over a decade. So there is a lot of reasons that this information might not be clear. This is a very weak start to what gets dramatically worse.
Searching his labs and not hearing the results from an actual doctor due to the mispronunciation. According to the Mayo Clinic, in most cases, a positive ANA test
That's not what it means.
indicates that your immune system has launched a misdirected attack on your own tissue. In other words, an autoimmune reaction, meaning this could have been from anything, including asthma, allergies, the common cold, or even eczema. Keep eczema in mind throughout this video.
My levels are fucking insane. And the note says homogeneous and speckled, exclamation.
Homogeneous and speckled is an interesting finding, but this doesn't mean anything more than a lab result. In doing research, yes, homogeneous and speckled can mean a specific type of lupus. But there have also been many ANA test results that come back homogeneous and speckled where the diagnosis turned out to be eczema.
Well, I'll tell you just so you don't get worried.
Okay.
I wrote the doctor this morning. I was like, I'm super stressed out. Like, what's going on with these? And he just wrote me back.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel a little better. And actually, this morning I had a conversation with ChatGPT that made me feel a little better too.
Oh boy.
A conversation.
Oh boy.
I did. I said, yo, doctor, it doesn't seem like good results on the taste test. I'm stressing about it. And he said, it's not a very high elevation. I would not be stressed about it. Still waiting for the molecular studies. ChatGPT was like, it's probably not leukemia.
Oh, good.
It could be lupus, but I don't have enough.
Reaching out to your doctor after looking at lab results is exactly what they're there for. And the doctor said that there was nothing to worry about. But according to Ethan, ChatGPT...
That's not what the doctor says. The doctor very explicitly says we are waiting for further results. The doctor is inconclusive. Your word is conclusive. Why don't you see the problem there? This is awful critical thinking. Like, you're not even listening to what's being said to formulate your argument. This is a very classic example of someone who went in wanting to do a thing and does not care where the evidence leads.
made him feel better, saying it's not leukemia, but it could still be lupus? I put this to the test. When talking to ChatGPT with the same lab results, the chatbot consistently says, talk to your doctor and basically don't take anything it's saying as fact, which Ethan had to ignore to get to this point. And from this point on is
your inputs in the ChatGPT are not going to be the same as someone else's inputs.
When Ethan Klein runs with this ChatGPT lupus diagnosis. Very quickly, let's talk about what lupus is. Lupus is a chronic autoimmune disease that can affect multiple organs and systems within the body. Symptoms include fatigue, joint pain and swelling, skin rashes, fever, kidney problems, chest pain, and more. Lupus is often characterized by periods of flares, where symptoms worsen, and remissions, where symptoms improve or disappear. Diagnosis of lupus can be complex due to the variability of symptoms and the fact that they can resemble other conditions. Doctors often rely on a combination of physical exams, medical history, blood tests, and sometimes imaging or organ biopsy to confirm a lupus diagnosis. Oh, and
now that you've read Wikipedia at us, you start to see the problem in this set of arguments. You're literally saying this is a complex diagnosis. You're talking about a person who's going through a complex process. People can take years to be diagnosed with chronic conditions. I know people who are very clear chronic conditions like pancreatitis, who took 3, 4, 5, 6 years to get diagnosed, let alone being treated in any kind of meaningful way. Like oftentimes what ends up happening is you'll start getting a set of symptoms and doctors will start treating symptoms, which will go away momentarily. For example, with something like lupus, where you have those flare-ups and remissions. Like, I think everyone who's ever been in the chronic illness land is familiar with prednisone. The steroid drug gets prescribed all the time and messes with you pretty heavily. Can cause sometimes worse symptoms than the thing. So you're pointing out that this is a complex task and you're trying to reduce it on the other end for money. It is really wrong.
Just like Ethan, I also forgot to mention it affects 90% women, being 2 to 3 times more prevalent among African American, Hispanic / Latina, Asian American, Native American.
That doesn't mean it doesn't affect men. I have known people who have lupus who are men.
And Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian, and other Pacific Islander women than among white women. With all that being said, now that you know a little bit about what lupus is, let's go back to someone who admittedly...
I'm just curious. I don't want lupus charities. I want... That's the Mayo Clinic, which is pretty close to what he wrote. Let's see what Wikipedia says. Lupus, where are you? Yeah, so he basically just copied those things word for word.
Doesn't
Someone call H-Bomber guy.
know what lupus is.
I don't even know what the fuck lupus is. Lupus symptoms. I wasn't really. I'll take lupus over fucking cancer. Lupus symptoms includes muscle and joint pain. No. Fever. No. Rashes. Sometimes I get on my face, but it's been gone for a while. Chest pain. No. Hair loss. I mean, look at me. Sun or light sensitivity. No. Kidney problems. Mouth sores, prolonged or extreme fatigue. Anemia. I don't have anemia in the blood test. Memory problems.
Oh, weird.
I have no symptoms.
Wow.
Because so ChatGPT is like, because you have no symptoms, like leukemia and lupus usually are accompanied with symptoms, then it's hard for me to say.
So what could it be? That's crazy.
Ela, that's a phenomenal question to ask. What could it be? With most lupus diagnoses being based off of symptoms, and according to Ethan, he has none whatsoever, you would think this would be the end of the AI lupus diagnosis. But boy, is that...
You said it yourself. Flare-ups. And so even if he's not necessarily having symptoms right now, that does not mean he could not have symptoms later. Try not to be so... Look at that face. Look at this face. He's so delighted with himself, despite being so incredibly stupid.
Wrong.
Because at first it was like my blood platelets were super high and my white blood cells were super high.
And that means one of those?
Not super high, I guess, but it was above the normal. And my original general doctor was like, it could be that you just have high values on that, and it's fine. So you can see my platelets are pretty high, 530. A certain type of what...
Yeah, you're talking literally one show. This is all the same show.
White blood cell is just a little bit high, just a little bit over the norm. Get down to the trispate. This one stressed me out.
Also, this video is so badly organized that we can't really skip ahead well.
Because it's almost double the normal range. Hopefully the doctors are listening. The anatiter one fucked me up. It says the normal value is between 1 to 40 and 1 to 80. Mine is 1 to 320. The lab that did this, they wrote an exclamation in red after this shit.
So did he give you a reasoning why, or?
Not yet. He says it's not a very high elevation. I would not be stressed about it. Still waiting for the molecular studies. So I guess there's more test results he's still waiting on. But the good news is my cholesterol's fine. If I don't die of cancer before I have a heart attack. So the weird thing about this is that I did a blood test a year ago.
Yeah.
And my platelets and white blood cells were elevated back then too. Ethan is being a little bit hypochondriac. Are you fucking kidding, dude? No, this isn't hypochondriac. Stop it.
According to Ethan, in the past, he has had lab results where his white blood cell count was elevated, which I believe is connected to his GERD diagnosis because, well...
Who the fuck are you? Is Jake Doolittle MD? Is that it? Let's check. Oh, Jake Doolittle is not a doctor. Okay, just checking.
Later in this video, his doctor says it is. Also, saying that you're not a hypochondriac and then following it up with this is wild.
Well, the good news is if I do have cancer, because I'm not symptomatic at all.
That's not hypochondria.
So if I do, we caught it, I guess, earlier than I would have if I started having symptoms.
That's like a really common fucking thing to say about early caught cancer.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But I think this idea of cancer seems unlikely based on what ChatGPT told me, and the doctor told me not to worry, so I'm trusting him on that one.
That's definitely the thing a hypochondriac says.
But if you look up all the ones that I'm abnormal for, it all is like, you have leukemia or lupus. I'll take lupus any day, bro. Hit me with that lupus.
Hit me with that lupus. Not only undermines people who have lupus's experiences, but also makes it seem like a lupus diagnosis is an easy thing to come by. Also,
a lupus diagnosis is infinitely easier to bear than a cancer diagnosis. Have you ever seen anyone who's been on chemo? Just a thought. Chronic illness is difficult. I don't want to say it's not. You have to do a lot of things. You have to change how you eat oftentimes. You have to change lifestyles. Things are not convenient. And the world that you are expected to live in is not built for you. You have a hard time with jobs and all kinds of things that simply do not accommodate the world as you exist in it. This is not that. This is a person at the beginning of what they think is a scary journey, trying to make it okay. And this kid is sitting here being a smug little shit about it.
just said the idea of cancer seems unlikely based on what ChatGPT told him. But he follows up by saying, according to ChatGPT, he has leukemia or lupus.
This idea of cancer seems unlikely based on what ChatGPT told me. But if you look up all the ones that I'm abnormal for, it all is like, you have leukemia or lupus. Oh, it also suggested Sjogren's syndrome.
Okay, all of those things, WebMD, all those types of things are designed to make you go to a doctor if you haven't gone already. So they're designed to be as scary as possible. So the sniffles becomes cancer, so that you go to a doctor and no one holds WebMD liable.
GPT suggested that, but I don't know what the fuck that is.
These chronic illnesses like Sjogren's syndrome that Ethan keeps thinking he has are predominantly in women, which he fails to mention multiple times. According to Johns Hopkins,
predominantly does not mean, oh, fuck, you're an idiot.
Said I guess 90% of the people survive, which is not, I know, great, but
it's not cancer.
It's not cancer, yeah, and it's treatable. It says people who get it treated can live a normal lifespan.
I mean, yeah, lupus is treatable in some situations, yes, and Ethan's wealth would make the process much easier. But somebody donated and said that their boyfriend died shortly after a lupus diagnosis, and instead of empathizing, Ethan spews out more ChatGPT info he's received and says people who get it treated can live a normal lifespan. Getting into the next episode that Ethan talks about his health in, we get a few updates on what could be going on.
So I have two doctors. I've got my general doctor and my hematologist now, and I've been messaging them both panicking. So let's see who got back to me. I mean, I'm so fucked. What is not wrong with me? Okay, now he says regarding the labs, the ANA is something interesting. Take this with a grain of salt with all the patient's symptoms before interpreting it. I think we are looking for a plausible GI issue that needs to be relied, as some of these diseases can elevate ANA.
Okay, dude, this is such poor taste. Why are you doing this? That's...
Possibly the esophagitis. Yeah, I'm waiting for the hematologist, but he made me feel better on Friday when he messaged me. He says, I don't think this is a new and separate problem than the one we discussed.
Oh no. Ethan had already spoken to his doctor about his levels, and the general doctor said that it's most likely an esophageal issue, which Ethan has had problems with for a long amount of time. But a new diagnosis seems to almost excite Ethan, so much so that he runs with these claims for over a month after his general doctor said it's not something more than his prior diagnosis.
Probably not.
Here's my dude.
I love my doctor, by the way.
I don't understand how, if he is a chronic illness sufferer, he is not familiar with the type of hedging that doctors do all the time. Have you ever tried to get a straight answer out of a doctor? Now try to get a straight answer out of a doctor when you have a chronic illness, and imagine how much more difficult it is. Why would you say things with such certitude? Oh, what's up, Bubba? Oh, Avery the history dog is very insistent. Let's take a quick break, and I will be back after I have attended to the dog. That's all right. Yeah, definitely. Well, that anxiety seems to be more what's at play here.
He's so awesome. He's so nice. It's so nice to have a good doctor who, like, I just trust I just trust him that he knows what he's talking about and he gets back to me. And
Ethan claims to trust his doctor and like him a lot, but on the other hand, ChatGPT is giving a new, exciting diagnosis. So I'll ask you again, why is he doing this?
Okay. ChatGPT is not part of this later conversation. Sounds like ableism. This is all ableism, which is ironic, all things considered.
During the initial stream where Ethan talks about his health problems, he received $1,550.42 in donations. These were either relating to his health or gifted memberships during the time where he expressed his medical anxieties. Some of those donations gave
This is not the right H3. Let's find it. Just out of curiosity. That's about right. Yep. Social Blade lets you run through things very somewhat. It doesn't really give you terribly useful information. But at 5.9 million subscribers and a fairly constant rate of views, except for this one for some reason, they'll probably be fine. $1,000 ain't going to be as a drop in the bucket, ultimately.
better advice than ChatGPT did, but Ethan seemed to ignore them. They included things like, Ethan, don't look too closely at your labs. I'm a nurse, and they're often slightly low or elevated based on different factors. An exclamation mark just means abnormal, but 2 exclamation marks means critical. Or don't look too much into it. Wait for the doctor, please. And I'm a nurse, and the context of your overall health is so important to understanding labs. I know it's hard. Try to be patient and trust that your MD will evaluate the full picture. Sometimes
okay, this isn't useful because these are people being critical. They're not being engendering sympathy or empathy, and they're not making a huge amount of money on this. What are you talking about? You have made already $460. Like you've already made close to 1/3 of what they've made by doing the same thing.
things will be elevated at baseline. Some of these donations were even from people struggling with lupus or other illnesses, telling Ethan not to worry about his labs. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in here for a little bit because people online are saying that nobody with lupus or chronic illness actually donated to Ethan thinking that he was actually sick. I wanted to read all of them. I went through thousands of donations over the 2 to 3 months that Ethan was doing this.
This is just a portion of them. I recorded myself reading all of the donations from people who are chronically ill, and then it turned out to be like 8 minutes long, so here's a spreadsheet.
$20 on June 16th. I had cancer, dude. Sucked, but the science is so advanced these days, and if you catch it early, chef's kiss. $10 June 19th. I have esophilic esophagus.
Holy shit. Is this ratio of donations different than normal? Did he see an increase in donations? Speaking of which, if you want to leave a donation here at Two Guys Talking History, you can do so in the description box. We always appreciate it. Thank you.
Esophagitis and acid reflux. It is pretty consistent with your pathology.
Life, genuinely. Could save your fucking life.
Mm-hmm. Thankfully, we have good health insurance. Thank you.
You're welcome, yes. And, well, hopefully you guys do too. Otherwise, then I guess you're just going to have to fucking die broke and without doctors.
Die! Jesus.
What are you saying, man? Ethan said this after already hearing about a fan's boyfriend tragically passing after receiving a lupus diagnosis. This is not the only time he says something about how...
Did So apparently you have chronic Lyme disease, and I'm asking genuinely, did the tick kill your ability to recognize jokes? Was it that kind of tick? I know there are ticks that can make you allergic to meat. Is that one of those ticks that basically made you so thoroughly unfunny and unwilling to recognize humor that you could sit here like this? Is that what happened? Is that what the tick did? Was it a humor-killing tick? And was it the same tick that bit Dave Chappelle? Dark humor is one of the principal concepts of basically medicine, really. Medicine, soldiers, EMS, fire and rescue, all those fields, very full of dark humor. But again, I guess dark humor isn't for everyone, kind of like food.
How having money gives you more resources for complicated health problems, but later he takes offense when people accuse him of being in a better health situation if he has money.
You're rich, you'll be fine. Is that true? Is that it?
Now we move on to the next episode where I'm not kidding you.
That's not what happened there. First of all, it's insensitive to tell somebody that their suffering is less so because they have money.
Reads a fan's Reddit post talking about how they have cancer and makes it about himself.
I saw a post on the subreddit, and I just want to give a shout out real quick at the top to a fan who was just diagnosed with cancer. You know, my heart goes out. He says, so I've been watching H3 all my life.
Diagnosed with cancer, LOL is the title.
I get the vibe though. Like, I get it. That's
Sadly, Jake doesn't.
Kind of how I felt on Monday.
Is that how you felt Monday? Because as I remember it, you were diagnosed with nothing new. The only thing the doctor actually...
Dude, don't be a stick. He was very clearly in a state where he's like, I'm concerned about being diagnosed with a thing. It makes me scared. I used some black humor to cope. You are such a little shit.
Acknowledged was a prior diagnosis Ethan has had for a while.
He says, I don't think this is a new and separate problem than the one we discussed. That's kind of how I felt on Monday.
Right.
And I haven't heard back from my hematologist, so...
I feel like that's probably good news.
He's still waiting, I guess, on some test results that haven't come in.
Okay. Gonna say if it's really bad, they'll like kind of be in a hurry to tell you, right?
Yeah, but...
I am so used to getting stat labs, it's not even funny. So I'm not used to labs taking several days. Like, I get lab results back day of. But that's mostly because I am... What's the word? Much sicker than most people.
He's still waiting. By the way, this person has cancer and I'm making it all about me.
I agree. Moving past this, apparently Ethan asked one of his crew members to ask their family member who's in the medical field what they thought about his lab results, and this was their response.
Did your family member get back to you?
Yeah, he did, but
he mentioned my titter?
Like it because
notice how she says you're not going to like his answer. Could it be that she knows that Ethan has his mind set on a lupus diagnosis and this medical professional doesn't support that claim?
I'll just send you the screenshots.
It's not good, is it?
It's not good or bad. He said it's...
Lena just framed it very scary, but no, it's not.
No.
I like it.
Oh, because I said...
How is that the conclusion you draw? The conclusion I would draw is, this person I know wants an answer to a thing, and this individual I asked was not able to provide an answer. Ergo, they won't like it. Like, this is the most basic assumption you should make.
You're not going to like it. He said it's basically inconclusive. It depends heavily on the clinical context. A lot of people have positive ANAs and are perfectly normal, and some providers don't even order them because there are so many false positives. And
what about the titter?
What about the titter? The ANA test that Ethan received is the titter. The titer part of Anna titter that Ethan has been talking about literally just measures the presence and amount of antibodies in the blood. This would be like if a doctor said Ethan was 5'6" and Ethan questioned the doctor's tool of measurement.
But anyway, the point is, I'm going to read it because I want to send love to this person. I've been watching H3 all my life and found this channel to actually lift me out of many depressive episodes. That being said, and I don't even know why I'm wasting my little life. Come on. I have left on Reddit to post my feelings. It didn't take you that long to write this. Right? But Anyways, I'm just typing words as I'm thinking. Cancer sucks. My grandma, then my mom, and now me are going to probably die from it. And honestly, it's funny hearing jokes about it. See? And it takes away from the everyday nature of think about dying. God, I love you, H3 fam. No homo.
No homo.
And I hope the podcast...
No homo.
And I hope the podcast lives on for many years after I'm gone. Well, I don't know what your situation is, but we love you. And if there's a chance to beat it...
Yes, what a terrible thing to say to someone who has cancer. We want you to beat cancer. You're an awful person, Ethan Klein. Awful, awful, awful.
I hope you do.
The person who posted on Reddit said,
that was sarcasm. That was definitely sarcasm.
Most likely die. And Ethan says, I hope you beat it, which I find so funny because Ethan is the exact type of person to get mad at someone for telling him, I'm sure you're fine. Oh.
I'm sure you're fine. But
why? You're not sure of that.
I'm sure. I know it.
What do you mean you're sure? I don't like when people say that.
I'm sure.
Why are you sure?
What would you want him to say? Like, what is this? How is this related to your point? Like, this isn't even a good, transparent hit piece. Let's skip ahead.
Said it's even more possible that he has lupus, but from what he shared, that information has not come from a medical professional, only ChatGPT.
I think I might have fucking lupus. But the weird thing is that I don't really have significant clinical symptoms.
You can tell how disconnected this take is because, as we will later find out, lupus can be a very difficult and stressful diagnosis to get.
That's the weird part about all this, and I guess it's making it hard for them to diagnose because we caught this whole part of clinical might have fucking
not come from a medical professional, only ChatGPT.
I think I might have fucking lupus.
Let's see this again.
But the weird thing is that I don't really have significant clinical symptoms.
You can tell how disconnected this take is because, as we will later find out, lupus can be a very difficult and stressful diagnosis to get.
That's the weird part about all this, and I guess it's making it hard for them to diagnose because we caught this whole thing by accident. I mean, I was just doing a random checkup, you know.
A difficult diagnosis to get. You're talking about a person who's in the middle of a thing. I don't know why are you... I don't want to run through this entire video. We've obviously ran through it, but you already see the problems here. None of these claims that he's making about him making this up match. He's not even listening to what Ethan is saying. He is simply saying things to get to a particular point. So let's go ahead and skip ahead to that point.
So in that GPT, if I understood correctly, AI actually said it was probably not lupus. So in that case, I would say the AI was spot on. So I guess that's it. I have spent 4 months gathering information on...
Motherfucker, you wasted 4 months of your life on this nonsense. To be wrong, to look this wrong. How does that make you feel to be that pathetic?
Ethan and his claims. If all else fails, I hope that at least one person after watching this video understands a little bit more about lupus, chronic illness, why it's insane to make claims like this. And for anybody who's actively struggling with lupus or chronic illness who needs financial help, my nonprofit, Never Stop, will be in the description below and you can apply there. Also, if you feel like it, you can donate to the Never Stop Fund. 10% of all profits from the clothing brand go into the fund, so either way.
10% of all profits from the clothing brand go into the fund. Let's go look at that out of curiosity. Shop clothing. $55 for a crew neck shirt. $30 for a hat. What do you think the other 90% goes into? Overhead. These aren't $50 shirts. We don't have any information about the charity. This is a scam. This kid is a scam. I'm telling you right now, we're going to find out about this kid in a CoffeeZilla episode. That's what's going to happen. This kid is going to be in a CoffeeZilla episode. Chronic illness is incredibly difficult. Don't give to this charity. I will post. It's just Jesus. I will post a set of charities in the Discord server that you can give to help for chronic illness. This is awful. This is a scam to get your money. And it's a bad argument. Like, this is transparently bad.